Hello, everyone. My name is Joseph Banks. I'm here again with another news roundup. Today, we're going to be looking at some articles by the Associated Press, which is another kind of independent another independent journalist outlet. They've got good coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. Lots of other things going on in politics and geopolitics, especially with what's going on in Ukraine and the Pentagon and whatnot, which is what we're going to be talking about today in our first article. So this one starts off. This was posted yesterday. Pentagon will give Ukraine $300 million in weapons, even as it lacks funds to replenish U.S. stockpile. By Tara Kopp and Lolita C. Baldor. March 12th, 2024. The Pentagon will rush about $300 million in weapons to Ukraine after finding some cost savings in its contracts, even though the military remains deeply overdrawn and needs at least $10 billion to replenish all the weapons it has pulled from its stocks to help Kiev in its desperate fight against Russia, the White House announced Tuesday. It's the Pentagon's first announced security package for Ukraine since December, when it acknowledged it was out of replenishment funds. It wasn't until recent days that officials publicly acknowledged they weren't just out of money to buy replacement weapons. They are $10 billion overdrawn. And that's what our money is being used for, guys. Our tax dollars. I mean, I have absolutely every problem with the government using my money to wage war, to wage its geopolitics. The announcement comes as Ukraine is running dangerously low on munitions, and efforts to get fresh funds for weapons have stalled in the House because Republican opposition. U.S. officials have insisted for months that the United States wouldn't be able to resume weapons deliveries until Congress provided the additional replenishment funds, which are part of the stalled supplemental spending bill. The replenishment funds have allowed the Pentagon to pull existing munitions, air defense systems, and other weapons from its reserve inventories under Presidential Drawdown Authority, or PDA, to send to Ukraine and then sign contracts to order replacements, which are needed to maintain U.S. military readiness. And, the U.S. military cannot not have supplies, We talked about that in the last video where you don't have an entire military industrial complex and then not use it. They've built this up over decades and decades and decades. When Russian troops advance and its guns fire, Ukraine does not have enough ammunition to fire back, said National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, announcing the $300 million in additional aid. The Pentagon also has had a separate Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, or USAI, which has allowed it to fund longer-term contracts with industry to produce new weapons for Ukraine. Senior defense officials who briefed reporters said the Pentagon was able to get cost savings in some of these longer-term contracts of roughly $300 million, and given the battlefield situation, decided to use those savings to send more weapons. The officials said the cost savings basically offset the new package and keep the replenishment spending underwater at $10 billion. One of the officials said the package represented a one-time shot, unless Congress passes the supplemental spending bill, which includes roughly $60 billion in military aid for Ukraine, or more cost savings are found. It is expected to include anti-aircraft missiles, artillery rounds, and armor systems, the official said. This is not a sustainable way to support Ukraine, said Major General Pat Ryder, Pentagon press secretary, calling it a one-time good deal that officials can't plan on occurring again. And is that really true? I don't believe that. I think that they're going to be able to, they will justify giving them billions and billions of dollars again and again and again for as long as it takes to start a nuclear war with Russia, in my opinion. The aid announcement came as Polish leaders were in Washington to press the U.S. to break its impasse over funds for Ukraine at a critical moment in the war. Polish President Andrzej and I'm so sorry that I can't pronounce names. Polish President Andrzej Andre, I think it's just Andre Duda. Polish President Andrzej Duda, let me know how to pronounce these names in the comments, guys, met Tuesday with President Joe Biden after meeting with Democratic and Republican leaders in the House and Senate earlier in the day. House Speaker Mike Johnson has so far refused to bring the $95 billion package, which includes aid for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, to the floor. Seeking to put pressure on the Republican Speaker, House Democrats have launched a long-shot effort to force a vote through a discharge petition. The seldom successful procedure would require support from a majority of lawmakers or 218 members to move the aid package to vote. Ukraine's situation has become more dire, with units on the front line rationing munitions as they face a vastly better supplied Russian force. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly implored Congress for help, but House Republican leadership has not been willing to bring the Ukraine aid to the floor for a vote, saying any aid must first address border security needs. Pentagon officials said Monday during budget briefings that they were counting on the supplemental to cover the $10 billion replenishment hole. If we don't get the $10 billion, we would have to find other means, Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks said. Right now, we've very much focused on the need for that supplemental. This is the second time in less than 9 months that the Pentagon has found money to use for additional weapons shipments to Ukraine. Last June, defense officials said that they had overestimated the value of the weapons the U.S. had sent to Ukraine by $6.2 billion over the past 2 years. At the time, Pentagon officials said the review found that the military services used replacement costs rather than the book value of equipment that was pulled from Pentagon stocks and sent to Ukraine. The discovery resulted in a surplus that the department used for presidential drawdown packages until the end of December. The United States has committed more than $44.9 billion in security assistance to Ukraine since the beginning of the Biden administration, including more than $44.2 billion since the beginning of Russia's invasion on February 24th, 2022. The vast majority of those munitions have come from army stockpiles due to the nature of the conventional land war in Ukraine. The months without further shipments of U.S. support have hurt operations, and Ukrainian troops withdrew from the eastern city of Avdiivka. I wish I could pronounce words right. I'm sorry. Last month, where outnumbered defenders had withheld a Russian assault for 4 months. CIA Director William Burns told Congress that entire Ukrainian units have told him in recent days of being down in their last few dozen artillery shells and other ammunitions. Burns calls the retreat from Avdiivka a failure of ammunition resupply, not a failure of Ukrainian will. Associated Press writers Ellen Nickmeyer and Stephen Groves contributed. All right, so that's enough of that first perspective there. Now, it's no secret that the United States is going to spend as much money as is possible. They will invent money, in order to further fund more wars. But none of that is going to be seen by us. Us, the American people, is when I say us, me specifically, since I live in the United States. But we're not going to see any of that help. We are the ones that are helping the government pay for another fucking war, or to send more random money to fund more war. We're going to look at another one by the Associated Press. This one is titled, "A pair of Israeli airstrikes deep into northeastern Lebanon kills at least 2 people, officials say." By Karim Shehayeb and Suleiman Amaz, updated on the 12th of March yesterday. A pair of Israeli airstrikes on Tuesday in northeastern Lebanon killed at least 2 people and wounded 20, marking a continued escalation between Israel and Hezbollah over the war Israel is waging against Hamas militants in Gaza. One of the airstrikes destroyed a warehouse that reportedly was used to store food. The Israeli military said the airstrikes hit 2 Hezbollah sites and were in response to rocket attacks over northern Israel earlier in the day. Hezbollah said they struck several Israeli military positions, including 2 bases in northern Israel with a barrage of 100 Katyusha rockets on Tuesday. The exchanges also followed Israeli strikes near the Lebanese city of Baalbek late on Monday night. Initially, an official from the Lebanese militant Hezbollah group told the Associated Press that one person was killed in the airstrikes in the town of Safri. A Lebanese security official later said that at least 2 people were killed and 20 were wounded, 9 of whom remain at a local hospital. The official said it was unclear if the 2 killed were Hezbollah members or civilians. Both the security officials and Hezbollah figures spoke on condition of anonymity in line with regulations. Last month, at least 2 Hezbollah members were killed in airstrikes near Baalbek, and another warehouse was destroyed. It had also stocked food that's in part of Hezbollah's Sajad project, which sells food to people in the group's strongholds at prices lower than on the market. Earlier Tuesday, Hezbollah's leader Hassan Nasrallah met with a top Hamas official, Khalil Hayeh, who was involved in negotiations for a ceasefire in Gaza. Last week, Qatar and Egyptian mediated efforts to broker a truce in Gaza before the start of the Islamic holy month of Ramadan broke down. Since the Gaza war erupted after Hamas-led militants stormed into southern Israel on October 7th, killing some 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and taking around 250 hostage, there have been near-daily exchanges along the Lebanon-Israel border, and international mediators have scrambled to prevent an all-out war in tiny Lebanon. In Israel's subsequent offensive into Gaza, at least 31,000 Palestinians have been killed, and most of Gaza's 2.3 million people have been forced from their homes, according to the health ministry in Hamas-run coastal enclave. The ministry doesn't differentiate between civilian and combatants in its counting. Now, I was just talking, this is an aside, I was just talking to my brother about this last night, how at this point in the war, 40% of all deaths have been children in Gaza. Not only that, but we were talking about the size of the Gaza Strip. For those of you who are living in the United States and you know some geography, I live in the city of Jacksonville, Florida, and it's it's the largest square mileage city in the country. It's about 800 something square miles, give or take, 850. The Gaza Strip is 140 square miles. Jacksonville is 8 times the landmass of that. Jacksonville has a big river that runs through it, called the St. John's River, and you could almost fit all of Gaza into that river, basically. And that's where people have been living and dying for forever. It's just really horrifying when you really start to put things into perspective and really start to boil down the numbers and you really start to grok what's actually going on here. All right, let's go ahead and get back into it. In the strikes near Baalbek late Monday, 1 person was killed and 6 were wounded. The Israeli military's Arabic spokesperson, Avichai Adrei, said Israeli jets bombed 2 Hezbollah compounds in northeastern Lebanon in retaliation for Hezbollah launching attacks on the Israeli-occupied Syrian Golan Heights. On Tuesday, the Israeli military said that the strikes near Baalbek targeted Hezbollah's drone locations. The Iran-backed militant group had claimed on Monday attacking Israeli military units in northern Israel with explosive drones. President Joe Biden's senior advisor, Amos Hochstein, had urged for a lasting ceasefire along the tense border when he visited Lebanon and Israel earlier this month. Hezbollah has said that a ceasefire in Gaza would be the only way to restore calm along the Lebanon-Israel border. Though Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said last month that anyone who thinks a temporary ceasefire for Gaza will also apply to the northern front was mistaken. That's because Israel is getting cocky. They're very overzealous now at this point. They have support from the United States. They can attack any of their neighbors and have hardly any consequences for it. Separately, Lebanon's caretaker foreign minister Abdullah Bou Habib appeared to underscore the link between peace in Gaza and the volatile Lebanon-Israel border, and urge in comments Tuesday for a full implementation of the UN Security Council resolution that brought an end to a brutal month-long war between Israel and Hezbollah in 2006. Full peace with Israel would come after they have peace with the Palestinians, said Bou Habib. Since the war in Gaza started, more than 220 Hezbollah fighters and nearly 40 Lebanese civilians have been killed on Lebanon's side, while in Israel, 9 soldiers and 10 civilians have been killed. Shayeb reported from Beirut. Associated Press writers Abby Sewell in Beirut and Tia Goldenberg in Jerusalem contributed to this report. Thank you guys for your help. Another reason why I want to do these videos is because I feel like there's not enough focus on independent journalism, especially on YouTube. YouTube is so oversaturated with every news outlet having their own version of what's going on, their own tiny bite-sized bit of propaganda that they can feed you. So I'm going to do my own bit of that. A little bit tongue-in-cheek there, but you get what I'm saying. Now this is for today, March 13th. An Israeli drone strikes a car in southern Lebanon and kills a member of Hamas's military wing. By Karim Shayeb, March 13th, 2024. Beirut. An Israeli drone strike targeted a car in southern Lebanon near the coastal city of Tyre, killing a member of the Palestinian militant Hamas group and a civilian. Since the Israel-Hamas war erupted in Gaza on October 7th, Israeli strikes have killed or wounded several ranking members of the Lebanese militant Hezbollah group, as well as its ally Hamas in different parts of Lebanon. Hamas identified its slain member as Hadi Mustafa and said he was with the group's military wing, the Qassam Brigades. Lebanese state media said that he was from the Rashidiyeh refugee camp near Tyre, where Hamas has a notable presence. The Israeli military released a video of a strike and said Mustafa was directing cells to attack Israeli and Jewish targets in different parts of the world, and reiterated that the Israeli army and security agencies will go after Hamas whenever the Palestinian group is active. Lebanon's state-run national news agency said the other person killed was a Syrian citizen who was on a motorcycle near the targeted car. It also said 2 people were wounded in the strike. The strike comes a day after a pair of Israeli airstrikes hit deep into Lebanese territory, killing a Hezbollah member and another person and wounding 20 people. The strikes were in retaliation for a barrage of 100 Katyusha rockets that Hezbollah fired targeting several Israeli military positions, including 2 bases in northern Israel earlier in the day. Also on Tuesday, top Hamas official Khalil al-Hayeh met Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah in Beirut. The United States and other governments continue with efforts to prevent the ongoing war in the Gaza Strip from spilling over into Lebanon as Hezbollah militants and Israeli soldiers trade fire across the volatile Lebanon-Israel border. In retaliation for the Hamas attacks, Israel's launched an offensive into the Gaza Strip that has so far killed more than 31,000 Palestinians, displaced hundreds of thousands, and caused wide destruction. Hezbollah has vowed not to stop the fighting until a ceasefire is reached in Gaza. The biggest Israeli strike in Lebanon came in early June when top Hamas official Saleh Aruri and 6 others were killed in a Beirut apartment. And that is enough for that little perspective there. It's good stuff. Not good stuff, literally, but it's important information. I'm going to post links to these articles again in the description and all that, and you can go check them out for yourselves. I highly recommend going and reading the Associated Press. They're a good news outlet, a good journalist, a good journalism outlet. Same thing with the WSWS. I'm going to do more of those as well. I'm kind of branching out a little bit to different news outlets and seeing what sticks because the almighty YouTube algorithm has to decide for me what my numbers are going to be. So other than that, I think that's all the time that I have for today. If you guys like the video, then let me know in the comments, interact, all that sort of stuff. And I will see you guys in the next video.